Alright, Spider-Man No Way Home is right around the corner. Some people have already seen it, I have not. I will have my review up on Friday. But for now, the newest episode of Hawkeye has been released, and it's in the same neighborhood. So let's talk about Hawkeye episode 5, with spoilers. If you have not watched episode 5 of Hawkeye titled Ronin, don't watch this video unless you don't care about spoilers. Alright, that's your warning, so now let's get down to business. And I gotta say, for an episode with just one action scene in it, it has to be my favorite episode yet. Probably because, for me anyway, it was the most informative yet. I will say quite a few questions we've had all season are answered in this episode, and I like the answers we got. Starting, of course, with Yelena Belova. This episode actually starts off back in 2018, so during the events of Avengers Infinity War, we see what Yelena Belova has been up to since the events of the Black Widow movie. Which, yeah, that does make sense, timeline-wise. We see that Yelena Belova has still been out there hunting down Black Widows and turning them good, spraying them with that antidote that we saw in the Black Widow movie. And then she goes into a bathroom, she washes her hands, and then you just see her turning to dust and then coming back. I knew it was coming because in the last episode of Hawkeye, Yelena did look about the same age as she did in the Black Widow movie. Meaning, yeah, she has not aged 5 years. Yes, Yelena Belova was one of the unlucky victims of Thanos' snap. And she comes back and the first thing on her mind is, where's Natasha? I need to let her know that I'm okay. Right there, I was like, I'm sad. Holy shit. Yeah, that sucks. And I will say, okay, the music, yes, that is the return of Yelena's theme from the Black Widow movie, the score of which was composed by Lauren Balfe. I kind of recognized it in the last episode, but I wasn't sure because, again, the score in the Black Widow movie wasn't that memorable to me. But now, hearing that theme in this episode, I was like, yeah, that is the theme from the Black Widow movie. I remember it. I remember that much, because Yelena was my favorite thing about the Black Widow movie. So it was cool to hear her theme again. In fact, that's not the only musical theme to return in this episode of Hawkeye from previous MCU installments. I'll get to the other one in a bit. So now we get to present day, and we get to what has become one of my favorite scenes in this entire season so far, and it's where Yelena Belova visits Kate Bishop's apartment. I love it. Kate throws the hot sauce at her, Yelena catches it, she's all like, hi. That was cute. And then they just sit down and talk over macaroni. And you can instantly tell that there is some good energy between the two of them. I do feel like they are gonna become close friends later on down the line. I mean, if these characters are gonna become our new Black Widow and Hawkeye in the MCU going forward, then I'm glad that we get to see what is ultimately the genesis of their friendship here in this episode of Hawkeye. But that being said, Yelena is still here on an assignment. She's still on a mission to kill Clint Barton. And Yelena brings this up to Kate, and that leads to a moral conversation. Cause yeah, Kate tries to convince Yelena there is no way that Clint Barton would have willingly let Natasha Romanoff die. Again, we think back to that scene in Avengers Endgame. I feel like a broken record, but I mean, so many scenes in this series have made me think about that scene in Avengers Endgame. Clint Barton was begging Natasha not to let herself go, but she did anyway. So now Yelena blames Clint Barton for Natasha Romanoff's death, even though he is absolutely, unequivocally not to blame. Unfortunately, Kate couldn't change Yelena's mind. I feel like in next week's finale, Clint will do a better job at that. Just a guess though, we'll see how it goes. And speaking of Clint, he goes to Grills' apartment. Grills is one of the LARPers. And there are a couple of things worth noting here. I mean, one, right when he opens the door, he was like, by the way, I've thought of a name for the dog. I was like, oh, okay, so that's how the dog's name is gonna come to be Lucky, like it is in the comics. But I guess we're saving the actual name drop for next week's finale. Understandable, I suppose. And also, Grills mentions that the costumes are ready. You remember, I think it was in last week's episode, where they mentioned, oh yeah, the LARPers can make new costumes for Kate and Clint. The ones they're probably gonna wear in that big battle scene we saw in the trailer. And Clint's like, yeah, I want to see them, just not right now. Can't blame him for that, but of course every fan watching this episode was like, aw man. Yeah, they're pulling a Falcon and Winter Soldier where they tease the costume in the penultimate episode, but we won't actually get to see it until next week's finale. Alright, well again, fair enough I guess. Back with Kate, she goes back to her mother's place, and surprise, Jack Duquesne has been arrested, cause Kate did ask her mom to look into all her suspicions, and sure enough she did, and yeah, there is a lot of dirt on this guy, so boom. Arrested. Which, alright, I'm glad that's taken care of, but that did just leave me going, what was the point of any of that? Like, Jack Duquesne has never felt more unimportant to this whole season than he does right now. Unless he comes back in next week's finale, which he might. But for now, I'm like, yeah, the whole Jack thing was completely pointless. This whole season could have done without him and his Three Musketeers mustache. I did like the scene, though, where Clint goes to this Battle of New York memorial. Because, well, first of all, I love seeing stuff like that in the MCU. Because, yeah, that does seem like something that would happen. This is where the Avengers first assembled back in 2012. There's actually something that Yelena mentioned in in her conversation with Kate in the beginning of this episode, she mentioned the new and improved Statue of Liberty, which alludes to the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. We saw that the Statue of Liberty has this Captain America shield now. I just love the fact that that was mentioned here in Hawkeye. Again, it makes it feel like this is one interconnected world. That's what the MCU has always done, and that's why we love it. Well, one of the reasons anyway. But yeah, getting back to it, Clint is at this memorial, and he takes out his hearing aid, and he has this silent conversation with Natasha Romanoff. It's actually a pretty heartfelt scene. And you even hear that Vormir theme playing in the background, you know, the theme from that scene in Avengers Endgame. That just worked in the feels even more. I was like, God damn it. Seriously with that shit? I didn't need that. I mean, it's good. I'm not saying I didn't need that like it was bad. I'm just saying I didn't need to feel the feels there. I wasn't ready for it is what I'm trying to say. And so Clint's like, I'm sorry for what I'm about to do. And he puts on his hood and I was like, oh shit, here comes the Ronin again. And so yeah, he suits back up in Ronin armor. He goes and finds Maya Lopez after completely pulling a Batman Begins and taking out all her goons. In fact, this episode took a couple of cues from Batman Begins. Again, when Yelena was like, you are defined by what you do. I was like, that's one way to put that quote from Batman Begins.
It's what you do that defines you.
Just saying. But yeah, the Ronin confronts Echo. He takes off his mask. It's Clint Barton. To which Echo is all like,
you killed my father.
Okay, obviously she didn't say that, but I like the fact that Clint, again, tries to convince her that her boss is bad news. In fact, he actually does give us a little bit of new information here. Apparently, the night he killed her father, Echo's boss wanted her father dead? That's what Clint says. So, alright, that could be the reason that Echo turns against her boss later on, maybe in her own show. She even then questions Kazi about it. She's like, why weren't you there that night? And Kazi's like, I don't know, I didn't get a call. So, alright, something might be fishy there. I do hope that next week's finale does offer some resolution here. And so now we're at the last scene in this episode. Kate gets a text from unknown, we're pretty sure it's Yelena, and it says, hey, I know who hired me. I thought you deserved to know. It's your mother and Echo's boss. They're working together. And upon seeing this, I was like, no, that's not true, Yelena. You're lying to Kate, because we all saw in the post-credit scene of Black Widow, you were hired by Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. She's the one who hired you. We saw it happen. But maybe, just maybe, Valentina could be working in the same organization as Eleanor Bishop and Echo's boss. Maybe the three of them are involved in the same thing together. That's just a theory I have, but I think it might be valid. I guess we'll see. And then, of course, the big reveal. Here it is. Echo's boss is, in fact, Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, played by Vincent D'Onofrio. Yes, you heard that right. Wilson Fisk, played by Vincent D'Onofrio from the Netflix Daredevil series, has returned to the Marvel Cinematic Universe proper. Holy shit. Alright, Vincent D'Onofrio was an amazing Kingpin in Netflix's Daredevil series from what I saw in seasons 1 and 2, because I haven't watched season 3 yet. But now that Kingpin is back, yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch Daredevil season 3, for sure. My question though is, does this make the Netflix Daredevil series canon in the MCU? Because I mean, seeing the Darkhold in WandaVision, I was like, okay, so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't canon, and I guess I thought by extension that meant all of Marvel Television isn't canon in the MCU, like we originally thought it was. But no, now this is telling us that at least Netflix's Daredevil could be canon. Or maybe they're just starting Kingpin all over again. Because I imagine that there are some people who watched this episode who have not watched any episodes of Netflix's Daredevil. And so they're gonna be like, who is this guy? We haven't seen him before in the MCU. We don't know his backstory. So there is that to consider. That being said, I am really pumped by this. I'm really looking forward to seeing Vincent D'Onofrio's return as the Kingpin. I love seeing him in that white suit. Yeah, that is absolutely the Kingpin. He is such a great character, and I can't wait to see him back. I have a feeling that next week's finale will not be Vincent D'Onofrio's only appearance as the Kingpin now in the MCU. If I had to guess, I'd say he's gonna be in a lot more of the Echo series that's coming up. If I'm predicting ahead, I would say that that series is gonna be Echo going after Kingpin, after having a change of heart thanks to one Clint Barton. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty good theory. But again, nothing is set in stone until it is. Needless to say, I am definitely looking forward to next week's finale. So, the 5th episode of Hawkeye titled Ronin. Have you watched it yet? What do you think about it? And how excited are you to see Vincent D'Onofrio's return as Wilson Fisk, aka the Kingpin, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go take a nap because I just got my booster shot and my arm's gonna get sore. And God knows I'm gonna want all my energy for Spider-Man No Way Home, so I'm out of here. Peace!